I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Time to rise and grind.
Are you kidding me? Holy un smoke!
And let's get this banter going.
It's bacon!
This is Snowman in the Morning.
Does anybody else feel like a fried egg?
And it begins now.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell,
I think I just broke my chair. He did what? Has anybody ever told you you have a serious impulse control problem?
There is but one cause for me to follow. Almighty the bomb!
And here we go.
oh yeah!
The kick, and here it comes. Swing and a miss! Swing and a miss! Swing and a miss! And a World Series Game 7 winning Curly W is in the books. The celebration is on. The Washington Nationals are the world champions.
You golden blank staggered black skeleton and blinkety black punk, are you trying to do? Of all that low dirty...
Johnson is three-point territory, but guarded tightly. Johnson cuts left, now fires a three. It is good, and he's fouled. It counts, and he is fouled.
Do you believe it? He did what?
Good morning. Welcome to the Taco Tuesday edition of a Snowman in the Morning. You can follow along with us on social media by dialing up SNW Digital Media for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Pinterest. You can also log on to Snowman Digital Media for all of our great conversations from this show, as well as others produced by Snowman Digital Media. This is the best sports talk show you haven't heard of until now. You can hear us every Monday, which is today, through Friday on all of our great stations and networks in the region, across the nation, and around the world, and across the internet. And the podcast version of this here show will be available right after this show is completed. You ready to get into it? Good. Let's get started. You know how much fun it is to talk football on this program and the people that join me? It's a whole lot of fun, and it's going to get even more fun because a very familiar name, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, especially from the late 80s and the 90s, is joining me right now. Former third-round pick out of the University of Arizona. He played alongside Jim Kelly, and he appeared in not 4, but 5 Super Bowls. This, my friends, is offensive lineman Glenn Parker of Buffalo Bills fame, and he joins me right now. How are you, my friend? Good to talk to you.
I'm doing well, thank you. Are you enjoying the draft?
You know something? How much fun, let's start here. How much fun was it to play along that line when you had Jim Kelly as your quarterback, James Lofton, Andre Reed, and those guys? How much fun was it playing with those guys?
Winning is fun. I don't care who's in that backfield. You really don't win. You win games, you're having a good time. And, that group of guys was kind of special, the way it was built and it was put together. And I was the young guy who came in 90, and they had a pretty old, established line at that point with Jimmy Richard and Ken Hall and Howard Ballard and Davis and Wolford. And I just kind of, and Jim Richard, I think I might have said him, but I'll tell you what, older guys. And I was the young buck who came in, and I got to go to 4 straight Super Bowls with that group.
That had to be fun, playing with those guys, going to 4 straight Super Bowls. You had your challenges in the AFC Championship games, playing the Raiders, blowing them out, and then a struggle against the Denver Broncos in your second one. The one I liked the most out of the 4 that you guys won, the one where you had to go on the road to Miami. Miami was the higher seed. And, whispers started saying this could be the end of the Buffalo run, but you go down to Miami and you hand it to them.
Yeah, I remember that really well. There had been some injuries during the year. We lost a couple games. We're finally getting healthy. And we won the wild card game. I think it was in Pittsburgh. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh to get down there. We beat, of course, the crazy wild card game against Houston that year. And then had to beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, which was an incredible game. And then to get down to Miami, they were saying, we finally got Buffalo. We're finally at home, because they used to cry about being up in the snow in the winter.
Right.
You get down there, it's about 75 degrees, your perfect Miami day. And we ran the ball well, but we ran a slip screen to Thurman, both sides, left and right. It was just called Rip and Liz, and we must have run that thing 25 times. And they couldn't stop it. They couldn't get after us with it. And, because of their pass rush, knowing that we were going to go a lot of empty sets or some 10 or 11, it was kind of one of those things that they had pinned their ears back. They had to drop deep enough to handle the speed of Lofton and Reed and all of our wide receivers. But what they weren't expecting was Thurman to slip out, get a ball, and have 3 offensive linemen in front of them against their backers who were dropped 20 yards away. So they didn't have an answer, and when they finally answered, of course, we had an answer. Between Ted Marchibota and Brezhnehan and the brain trust there, they had come up with a great game plan. And of all those championship games, that one to me was really special, just because the hatred of the Miami fans towards us and vice versa, the hatred of the Pittsburgh fans towards us and vice versa. And getting able to put so many rumors to rest, because they finally got those games at home against us, didn't have to come to Buffalo.
Yeah, and a lot of teams didn't want to come to Buffalo. Let's go back to that wild card game. Down 35 to 3. And I remember watching this game, and you guys just had an attitude that you wouldn't give up. There were a lot of people that day that wrote you guys off, especially after starting the second half with an interception. You were minus Jim Kelly. Frank Wright came in and led the charge, and y'all just wouldn't give up that day. You embodied the spirit of what the Buffalo Bills were all about at that time.
Well, I think first off, you have a lot of pride because you won a lot of games by that point. But then secondly, we had been imbued with that sense of just do your job. Just do your job one play at a time. And we said that at half, do your job one play at a time. Of course, we have the pick on the far side. Matter of fact, if you watch that film sometime, you'll notice I'm the last guy with a shot at him.
Yeah.
I dive. I hit my solar plexus right on the ground. I am completely out of breath. A college teammate of mine comes up. This is just not your duty, Park. He's one of the starting corners.
Yeah.
And I got to walk back to the sideline. I can't catch my breath. The next thing you know, we're back out on the field. And it's like, oh, my God, this is a long second half. But just do your job one play at a time. And just, all you can do is go back to basics at that point. And credit, Frank Wright, credit the coaching staff, understanding what we had, what we were doing, and coming up with some answers. And, it was one of those things. There's a whole lot of people in Buffalo that say they were there that day. And there were not many people up in the stands when we were down 35 to 3. So there's a whole lot of people that have lied about that over the years.
Yeah, and that was when it was called Rich Stadium at the time. And, just seeing that game, the wild comeback, 3 big fourth down conversions, 2 of them turned into touchdowns. And it was just a wild day and a wild ride down to Miami. You win the AFC Championship. You get to the Rose Bowl and you face the Cowboys. And this is where my fandom is going to come in. I was really hoping my 49ers would see you guys in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, but the Cowboys went to San Francisco and played a perfect game, and then you guys had to see them in Pasadena.
Well, yeah, they were a supremely talented team, and it doesn't help. I think we had 6 turnovers, or 7, and all 7 resulted in points. So, matter of fact, and I might be mistaken, but I think if you look at the line, we actually might have outgained them in yards,
right,
and time of possession. But you're behind the 8 ball the entire time by having turnovers that go for points.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest things that can happen in a Super Bowl. Lord knows I've seen it. I know you've seen it. But playing under Coach Marv Levy, what was that? What was that like, playing under such a legendary coach?
Well, I think the thing with Marv that knows he's a great coach. Everyone knows he's incredibly smart. He told stories and sang songs and kind of came off as a little hokey to some. But what he did well was he communicated with everybody with a single sentence. So he could use a sentence in a meeting or in talking about or giving us a story, that, the smartest guy in the room understood it at one level, and the dumbest guy in the room got it still. They still got it, and the point was made. And that's an incredible gift that Marv had, and I never forget some of the stories he told, just, lessons from history of how to conduct ourselves and where we were going. And it was, he's one of those guys. What I loved about him is he didn't get in your way. When I say that, he was very open and honest with the media and with the fans. Like, when they asked him why he didn't say things to this coaching group or that part of the team, he's like, I hire my coaches, I delegate authority to them. They're the best guys to be the coaches in that situation, not me. And that's the way it should be. You're a CEO. You're not a hands-on guy anymore when you're head coach.
Yeah, and I loved watching that team. You were drafted in the 3rd round out of Arizona, and with the NFL draft going on, what was that day like when you heard your name called and you were headed to Buffalo?
Well, remember this. Anybody other than the very first pick in the draft is upset that they didn't go higher.
Right.
So, that's the way it is for all of us. And I had been told, at that time you couldn't go out early or any of that. I mean, the way it is today, you couldn't get guidance. I had basically been told you're a late first, early second guy, and you're going to be probably the 4th tackle taken, stuff like that. Well, along comes a huge group of juniors that come out, and all of a sudden I drop to the 3rd round. I'm the 5th tackle taken. And believe it or not, in today's world, generally the 5th offensive tackle taken in the late 1st round. So I was a little bit, but that doesn't replace the feeling of joy you get and how much relief for all the work you put in, all the things you've been doing and giving up to get to that point, and the excitement you feel, the family around you. Everybody's so excited, and you have to constantly remind yourself during that period that this has just started. Nothing's over. You're just beginning. And that's where so many rookies have a problem come, middle of October. They start swallowing their tongues going, I've been grinding at this for over a year now. Mm-hmm. They go through their senior year, they train for the combine, they train for the draft, they go to the OTAs, they're in camp, and that doesn't happen in college. And so you have that inner battle of, I'm so excited to go do this shit. Oh my God, I got so much work to do. And I learned some great lessons through that. And I tell you, I learned that my brother Cole's way more athletic than I thought. He fell in the pool and never spilled a single drop of his beer. So that was pretty impressive. Other than that, you're excited. It's fun.
I love that. It is fun watching these guys get drafted, seeing their reactions when they go. And what's really fun is seeing them go to their favorite teams. And you said when you were drafted out of Arizona, you said earlier in our conversation, you were the young buck coming in. Their line, the Buffalo line, was already established, and you named some of the great players they had along that line, including Howard Ballard, Jim Richer, Will Wolford, and those guys. What was one of the first lessons that they taught you when you came into the Bills camp in 1990?
Well, I think do your job, work, hone your craft, learn how to watch film. All the things you think you know as a senior coming out, you really don't have a clue because you don't have time in college. In college, you have a couple hours here, an hour there, where you're going to watch some film. And in the NFL, you meet as a team, you meet as an offense. As an offense, you meet for special teams, you meet as an offensive line. And the entire time you're watching film and you're listening to opinions and you're finding different angles of how to watch film. And you try to glean from one person to the next or some coach what it is that they're seeing and how can I see that? And then you end up developing your own method and what works for you and how you do it. And that's kind of, I learned a lot that first year. I got much better by my 3rd, but I'll tell you, as I got older, by the end of my career, when I was at the age when some of those guys were, I truly understood watching film and how to do it and what it was I was looking for and why I was looking for those things. So, and that's one of those things that's immeasurable when you come in as a rookie, because remember, you're coming in to take somebody's job, and they don't have to treat you well. And generally, I always tell any kid that I mentor or get ready, do not become friends with the veterans. Because the minute you do, you'll start taking time out of your work to go. They're going to get you to go out. They're going to get you because they don't have your best interest at heart all the time. I know that sounds awful, but they're trying to keep their paychecks rolling. So they want to keep, some guys, hey, hats off to them, the best people in the world, they teach everything. Some guys aren't like that. I've known both sides of it.
Yeah. I've spoken to a lot of offensive linemen that have played in the NFL, and I get it, and I use those lessons now in doing this show and getting everything prepared and getting it all together. That's Glenn Parker, 5-time Super Bowl participant. You remember him from his days running with Jim Kelly, the K-Gun offense, Marv Levy, and the Buffalo Bills. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the program, my friend. I truly appreciate it.
Well, I enjoy it. Thank you, man. It's always fun to talk ball and talk about the good old days, and they are old days now.
I want to have you back on a little bit later on, but toward football, so we can talk more about the old days. I'd love to have you back.
Anytime you let me know, and be happy to come on.
All right, I appreciate it. Glenn Parker, 5-time Super Bowl participant, and I got some more stuff for you after the break.
This is Snowman in the Morning.
I did not need to be told that.
Where true sports talk lives.
Excellent.
Can't wait.
The last time I had this gentleman on, it was to wrap up the divisional playoff between the Vikings and my beloved 49ers. I haven't had a chance to talk to him since, and there have been many reasons, some of them my own. This is Stephen Askins of the Inside Blitz. He joins me right now on the other side of the hotline. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Snowman, what's going on? Long time no talk. Hope everything is well with you and your family.
Thanks.
Hope you're staying safe during this virus. It's definitely been a minute.
It's been a good minute. I told you last year that the 49ers would make the Super Bowl And you and a few other people thought I was crazy until that Monday night game against Cleveland and that big win at New Orleans. So we'll start there with the 49ers sending DeForest Buckner to Indianapolis, but then they snatched Javon Kinlaw out of South Carolina, and he could fit right on that defensive line quickly. So they haven't missed a beat.
With that pick, I think they definitely got him a player who's ready to come in there and tear the league up. I mean, I definitely like the pick.
And he's a perfect fit for that defensive line because last year, Rookie of the Year, Nick Bosa, many had questions of how he fit on that defense. Fits perfectly. And once again, for the second straight year, they get 4 first-rounders on that defensive line. But then later on, in the first round, they snatch up Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State. And I made the comparison to a few friends of mine that Ayuk could do this year what Deebo Samuel did last year in that 49er offense.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised. I definitely like his play. And if he's anything like Deebo Samuel in that San Francisco 49ers offense, it's going to be a problem.
It is going to be a problem. And remember, folks, they got one more in tow in Jalen Hurd out of Baylor, who missed last year with a back injury. And, of course, the exploits of one George Kittle. We'll have to see how all that plays out. Let's talk about the Redskins snatching up Chase Young out of Ohio State. An earlier guest on the show said he gives them an identity on defense. Do you agree with that?
Well, I believe he brings another dynamic to that defense. The Redskins, for the last couple of years and the last couple of drafts, have been working on their defense.
That they have.
With getting Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, people that are run stoppers that can get to the ball, that can get to the quarterback. And Chase Young brings another dynamic to that defense. He's from the area.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up loving the Washington Redskins, hating the Dallas Cowboys. But you always want that if you're a Redskins fan.
Absolutely.
And I mean, if you watch tape of him in Ohio State, I mean, the thing that he does is he gets to the quarterback.
He does.
He gets to the ball carrier, and that's exactly what you need. He's definitely hungry, and he has nothing but a bright future in front of him. I definitely like the pick.
I like the pick also for the Redskins. And it's time for the Redskins to get back on top of the NFC East. All right? I'm saying that right now. It's time for the Redskins to climb back on top of the mountain. Where else do you what else do you see them needing, to take that next step and get back into competition in the East?
Well, first and foremost, I have to say I love what they did by going ahead and getting Ron Rivera.
Right.
Jay Gruden was a problem. Bruce Allen was a problem. The training staff was a problem. Now all of them are out the door. You go get Ron Rivera. You go get Jack Del Rio, who played in the NFL, who are great-minded coaches, and they know exactly what they need in that locker room.
And Jack Del Rio was a former coach and one hell of a defensive player. In fact, he spent most of his career, if I remember correctly, with the Minnesota Vikings. So Jack Del Rio on that coaching that defense, that's going to help the Redskins a lot, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. And they're switching from the 3-4 back to the 4-3,
right,
which we all know that the Redskins won Super Bowls off that 4-3 defense, not the 3-4.
They sure did.
But, they know exactly what it takes. They know what type of players that they want in D.C., in that locker room at FedEx. And I think that the Redskins need protection on that offensive line. That's always been a problem for us. We don't have a dominant tight end. We have Jeremy Sprinkle, Jordan Reed. He had his issues, which he's no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we also need to draft a tight end. We don't need no more quarterbacks, no more running backs.
Right.
I think that they might go safety, maybe corner. Other than that, I really like what we're doing on defense. It's just protecting, Dwayne Haskins, and giving us protection for the run game.
Yeah. And the biggest problem, the offensive line protecting Haskins, and you've said it a couple of times already. If they can protect Dwayne Haskins, then you'll really be able to see what Haskins do with the Redskins, what he did at Ohio State.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you threw them into the fire last year, even though they had a 3-13 season, with basically a banged up offensive line. They were plugging in pieces here and there. And Dwayne Haskins, he really cut down on his turnovers, and he was able to throw the ball downfield, and he was able to bring us closer to winning games instead of getting blown out. So
right,
I like the Dwayne Haskins as our quarterback. I know that the Washington Redskins traded their 7th round pick to the Carolina Panthers for Kyle Allen. I think that they just brought him in order to push Dwayne Haskins even more. I've been seeing Dwayne Haskins out there practicing every day, trying to improve his craft. And as a young quarterback, that's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
If not, they're going to run you out the NFL real quick.
Yeah, very quick. Speaking of being thrown into the fire, there's a quarterback by the name of Justin Herbert who's going to be thrown into the fire as he was chosen by the Chargers. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, if you look at the Chargers, Phillip Rivers is no longer there. They have their quarterback already in Tyrod Taylor. Okay, how long is he going to play? Okay, he might give you 2, maybe 3 years at the most.
Mm-hmm.
But the NFL draft had a very, very high quality quarterbacks. I'm always for drafting a quarterback if there is a need for one.
Right.
And Justin Herbert, I definitely like that. He can sit behind Taylor and he can learn. Don't throw him into the fire yet. Let him learn as much as he possibly can. Then when it's his time, hey, the sky's the limit for the guy.
Do you think he starts this year at all?
I don't believe so, not unless, Taylor was to get hurt. But I don't wish that on any quarterback, so
right.
I don't see him starting this year. But, things could change. If Taylor, throws the ball, and causes a lot of turnovers, they might throw him in the fire a little early. But I just say give him a little bit of time and let's see what he can do when the time's right.
Let's go to the top of the pile. Cincinnati drafts Joe Burrow like everyone expected to. Is Burrow going to have a troublesome season, or is Cincinnati going to fix that offensive line to keep him upright?
I think that he's going to struggle his first season because Cincinnati, they have too many issues on both sides of the ball. And it doesn't seem like they're really addressing them too much this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, his first year is definitely going to be a learning curve for him because, you still have Andy Dalton there and you still have his backup. Okay, so how much playing time is the kid really going to get? We don't know. We don't know if they move on from Andy Dalton or if he stays on the team. But, it's Andy Dalton's job to lose, and we'll find that out during training camp. But I think, if anything, he'll have a troublesome year if and when he starts. If not, hey, just let him learn as much as he can so when the time is right, he'll be ready.
The other point with Cincinnati drafting Joe Burrow, and I question this, they don't have the horses that LSU had, nor the offensive coordinator that LSU had, to assist Joe Burrow. So I believe you're right. He's going to struggle this first year because they don't have that many receivers to throw to. They don't have a tight end like Thaddeus Moss that he can throw to. And he doesn't have Clyde Edwards-Helaire to give to in the backfield for that safety net. So all of his safety nets that he had at LSU during an undefeated season, he doesn't have yet in Cincinnati.
And that's very problematic for a young quarterback.
Very problematic. Jalen Hurts to Philadelphia. You surprised with that pick?
I was definitely surprised with the pick, but it's a pick that I definitely like. I followed his college career, and this quarterback, man, he can do it all.
Yeah.
From running the ball to throwing the ball, being accurate. And, he never gives up. He always has that fight in him. And I definitely like him backing up Carson Wentz because we all know Carson Wentz, he's injury prone, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Look, in my eyes, he is. I mean, and then they don't have Nick Foles no more. So you need a young quarterback that can go out there and get it. And I definitely like Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. I was definitely surprised, but it was a hell of a pickup.
Does this signal the end of the Wentz era in Philadelphia?
It very well could. I mean, all it takes is Carson Wentz to get hurt, and then Jalen Hurts to come in and be the superstar that he was in college.
Mm-hmm.
But now you pair him with Deshaun Jackson, and that offensive wide receiving core, the running backs, the defense plays well. I mean, he can really make a name for himself in Philadelphia. So it very, very well could be the end of Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
As they said, Carson Wentz is now on the clock.
Yeah, Carson Wentz is indeed on the clock. Talking with Stephen Askins of the Inside Blitz, joining me here on the program. Tua at number 5 to Miami. Your thoughts on that selection?
Tua Tagovailoa to the Miami Dolphins. I thought that they should have went. They should have went with the offensive line. I really do. We all know that Tua has been hurt. And, I mean, I really didn't like that pick, but, the medical doctors have cleared him of his injuries and said that, he's pretty much good to go. Only time will tell. You have Ryan Fitzpatrick. You have Josh the Chosen Rosen, which, I think his career is over. If anything, he's best at backup.
Yep.
But Jalen Hurts, I mean, he could do some things in Miami, but you definitely got to protect your quarterback. You got to get them weapons on the outside with tight ends and wide receivers, and you got to establish that running game.
Let's go to Arizona. Isaiah Simmons just falls into the lap of the Arizona Cardinals. How does that help the Cardinals on defense?
Well, if you look at the Arizona Cardinals, offensively, they're doing just fine. With the pickup of DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald and Kyler Murray, we all know what he can do. Defensively, that is kind of an area that I think the Arizona Cardinals really need to focus on. Isaiah Simmons, he's definitely what the papers say that he is. I mean, you go back and you watch film on him, he is, that run to the ball. He's that, get your hands up if the pass is coming your way. He's definitely that linebacker that'll get to the quarterback with no hesitation. I definitely like that pick.
Any surprises in the first round that got your attention, but then made you shake your head going, why did you pick him?
Well, I'll tell you that I was definitely surprised that the Dallas Cowboys went up and they got CeeDee Lamb.
You're thinking the same way I am.
being a Washington Redskins fan, it's always our Super Bowl if we go out and we beat Dallas.
Yes.
I hate to say it like that, but that's pretty much what it is. I'm going to call it as a call. But they went after CeeDee Lamb, and they have a pretty good offensive wide receiving core. You pair him with Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is still trying to get his contract ironed out.
Mm-hmm.
But their receiving core is young, and they can definitely take the top off of defenses. I was hoping that, CeeDee Lamb went to Miami or got picked up before the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
But if you're Jerry Jones, that was a hell of a pickup. Now I'm kind of nervous. But I have confidence in my team that the Washington Redskins are going to be able to beat the Dallas Cowboys at least twice a year. If we don't go to the Super Bowl, just give us Dallas twice a year.
I thought they would go defense because they really suffered on defense last year. Speaking of the Cowboys, I thought they would go defense in the first round.
Well, yeah. I mean, defense is one of those areas that you can definitely address during, free agency and the draft. And, the Dallas Cowboys have been pretty decent on defense. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that they've been anything to write home about, but they're definitely stacking that defense up this year.
Yeah, that they are. Talking first round of the NFL draft with my man Stephen Askins of the Inside Blitz. And I leave you with this question. Can anybody touch San Francisco again this year?
Well, if anybody can touch San Francisco again, we all know that it's who. No, Kansas City. Kansas City is still one of those teams that, you know, can make it and win a Super Bowl. You know, as they just came off their Super Bowl winning year.
Yeah, they just did.
You know, the Baltimore Ravens are definitely a team that you need to look out for. New England, you know, you can pretty much write them off. Tom Brady's out of there. Rob Gronkowski's out of there. So, you know.
Is the NFC, and I'll give you this bonus question as well. Is the NFC South there for the taking for Tampa Bay, or does it still belong to New Orleans? I say it still belongs to New Orleans as long as Drew Brees is there.
And I definitely agree with you on that. You know, a lot of people say that, you know, being that Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski are in Tampa Bay, then, you know, Tampa Bay is destined for a Super Bowl this year. I say that is a negative. I am going with the New Orleans Saints. But, you know, if you give them some time, you know, maybe their second year, maybe third year, you know, maybe that they can make it to a Super Bowl. But I don't see it this year because, you know, with this virus going on, they're not able to get into the weight rooms. They're not able to, you know, practice with each other. So they're not going to have the chemistry down packed. So you got to give them at least a year for that to figure out, you know, just the chemistry part of it. So second, third year, possibly, but as long as Drew Brees is still there, they're definitely one of the teams that you definitely, you know, you can't take lightly.
Yeah. And I still say the NFC will go through San Francisco, and it's going to go through San Francisco for a while unless the team steps up and just absolutely wows you. And that can happen. That absolutely can happen. Stephen Askins of the Inside Blitz joining me. A pleasure to have you on, and I look forward to have you on a lot more often during this football season, my man.
Thank you so much, Snowman. It was a pleasure.
Got more stuff for you coming up after the break.
This is Snowman in the Morning, where true sports talk lives.
He did what? I did not need to be told that.
More draft talk, and this time we focus on the Carolina Panthers. And to help me do that, I welcome Desmond Johnson of The Rundown to break this part down. DJ, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. Enjoying this morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good as well, man. All right, let's get into it. Before we get into the Panthers, are you surprised that Miami took Tua at number 5 in the first round?
No, actually, I'm not. If people remember, really, through the first half of the NFL season in 2019, the talk was for tanking for Tua. And people thought that Miami was actually tanking for him because of the way they played the first, month of the season. Turns out they weren't really tanking, and Tua was the guy they wanted to begin with, and he kind of fell in their lap, just the way the draft will work. So they ended up getting their guy without having to give up anything for him.
Yeah, this is true, and they got their guy. Now they have to protect him. All right, now let's get into the Carolina Panthers. Which way did you think they would lean in the first round, and did they match what you were thinking?
I saw a lot of talk about Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker from Clemson, who can do multiple spots. He can play linebacker, he can play safety, he can play edge rusher. And I thought about it. The more I thought about it as we got closer to the pick, I remembered the last 10 games of Carolina's season last year, and we were just getting gutted with the run. Like, guys were just rattling off 10, 12-yard runs right up the middle, and it's like every play it felt like it was excruciating. So you thinking about that and knowing that they did have Kawan Short coming back, the Panthers have always been at their best when they have a solid tandem. When they have a solid tandem at tackle, defensive tackle. So Derek Brown, he seems like actually I'm really happy with the pick. It seems like the Panthers and Matt Rule have consciously decided to bring in culture changers, character-driven type guys, and from all accounts, from what I've heard about this kid, super smart. Kind of has I wouldn't say a military background. His father was in the military, so very structured. Really what they needed, a shot in the arm. And now you're looking at the defensive line with what they did day 1 and 2 with what they already had. and give them a year or two, and we may be talking about the Panther defensive line the way we talk about San Francisco's right now.
Yeah, and you went to defensive line again, picking up defensive end Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State in the second round. What do you think his impact will be?
I really like that pick. I wasn't sure what they were going to do in the second round. I've been on record saying I wanted them to draft Jalen Hurts, who actually went to a surprise place himself last night. But once it happened, and I read up on the kid, and he seems really raw, but I love his size. And hopefully our defensive line coach will be able to coach him up and get him going the way that we want him to. But honestly, with him and then our number one draft pick last year, Brian Burns, on the other end, now you got KK Short and Brown in the middle. That's a pretty good starting defensive line there. Burns coming into his second season, I expect him to have a really big leap. And if this Matos kid is as advertised in terms of his potential, I think Carolina's done really. Actually, I really think they've killed this draft so far.
Yeah, I really think so too. But let's stay in the second round. Jeremy Chin out of Southern Illinois. They go mid-major to fix their secondary. What do you think of that?
I didn't know a whole lot about Chin. I went to go look up his info. Safety from Southern Illinois. They needed secondary desperately. Really, they needed every spot on defense desperately. Like whoever the best player available on their board was, if he was defense, they were going to go after him. I like Chin. I like from what I've read about him. CBS Sports has the first 3 rounds or the first 3 picks for the Panthers all rated at A or higher. So I mean, the Brown pick got an A+. Gross-Matos got an A+. Jeremy Chin got an A. I mean, they're doing really well. They had to give up a third to move up to go get him. But that if he pans out, that'll help a lot in terms of shoring up the back end of the Panthers defense. But I wouldn't be surprised if they double dip and go after another defensive lineman today in the 4th round, just primarily because it's easier to most of the top defenses that you could think of in NFL history, they usually start with a really strong front 7, not a really strong secondary.
Yep.
Like you have rare instances like the Legion of Boom and things like that, but even the Legion of Boom had a really good front 7 in front of them.
Yeah, they did.
And anytime Carolina's been really good, they've had a good front 4. Like they've been able to put pressure on a quarterback without having to blitz. Whether it's their original Panthers back in the late 90s with Kevin Green and Lamar Lathan and those guys, or the 03 squad that had Julius. Sam Mills and all the 3-4 defense they were running back then. They were able to apply pressure, but they had a great front. And not only took 2 years to build. It doesn't take very long to do this if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
The 03 Panthers, same way. Julius Peppers, high draft pick. Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle, all pro. And all those guys on that front. And then the most recent carnation from the past couple of years that had Kawan Short and Latulele and those guys. So I mean, it all starts up at the front, and I think that it's easier to put together a defensive front that you can run with for 4 or 5 seasons and swap out secondary guys than it is to pay a high-end cornerback and hope that he can cover for 5+ seconds every play, because that's almost impossible in the NFL. So I like what they're doing so far.
Well, here's something that just happened. There were rumblings about it toward the weekend, and Trent Williams has been traded from the Redskins to the San Francisco 49ers for 2 draft picks, a 5th-round draft pick this year and a 3rd-round draft pick in 2021. Man, the 49ers have been playing chess the last 3 years. You saw some of the results of it last year, and now they get some serious needed help on their offensive line.
Wow, San Francisco is very aggressive. I don't think they even had a pick until like round 5 or something like that.
Right.
Coming up here. San Francisco's got the right frame of mind, man. That was the one thing that Dave Gettleman did teach me, that you build a team in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, and they're getting a former first rounder in Trent Williams, who didn't even play last year due to contract disputes and injuries and issues with doctors and all kinds of things. But by all accounts, he's still an all-pro caliber offensive lineman. So good for San Francisco to stick to their guns and do what made them successful last year. Run the ball, stop the run. It'll never go out of style, no matter what the style of play is in the NFL. You can do that, you're going to have a chance.
And let's talk 49ers right now. They jettisoned DeForest Buckner. They sent him to Indianapolis in a money move. And what do they do Thursday night? They snatched Javon Kinlaw, a pick I had mocked to San Francisco, and people thought I was crazy when I said that. But they were looking to replace DeForest Buckner and keep that defensive line strong, keep that front seven strong, as you said. They get an absolute beast in Javon Kinlaw.
Yeah, I mean, they basically swapped out a defensive tackle for a younger, cheaper version at the same spot, so they'll be able to continue on what they're doing and still be able to stay, reasonably, within their cap space to go do other things. I just like what they're doing in terms of bringing in young talent on rookie deals and basically kind of going from there. You've already paid your quarterback. You've got some people in skill positions. You've got a super good defense, especially, like I mentioned before, that defensive front, maybe the best in football. And you're just replenishing it. You just keep feeding it and just putting new talent in there. Almost kind of like the way the Patriots were early 2000s, where they would constantly, they would let somebody go before they reached their peak. You bring in somebody else, a top talent, first or second rounder kind of type guy. You ride him for 3-4 years, and then you move him out and ship in the next guy. So they're kind of taking that philosophy, it feels like. But hey, it works. So shout out to the 49ers. They may be the prohibitive favorite in the NFC. Again,
and they're going to be the favorites for a while because of the way.
Yeah, I think so.
Because of the way they're stacking this. And once again, we talked about it last season. 4 first rounders on that front line. You swap out DeForest Buckner, you bring in Javon Kinlaw, and Kinlaw can pursue the ball. Okay, and Kinlaw is a perfect hand and glove fit for this 49er defense. Nate Burleson said it after they beat the Packers in the NFC Championship. There's a lot of defensive lines that are good, but the difference between the 49ers defensive line and a lot of others, the 49ers get home to the quarterback, and they do it fast.
Yeah. I'm looking around the NFC, and the other team that I would have thought may have been able to kind of compete with San Francisco would be the team they played in the NFC Championship game, the Green Bay Packers, but they may have created their own problems by drafting a player we're not really sure if they actually needed or not, but it kind of sent out shockwaves throughout the league in terms of what the Packers did.
It's weird that they snatched Jordan Love. You're going to create a competition anyway. Aaron Rodgers is still there. Aaron Rodgers is still going to do Aaron Rodgers things, but why do you think they selected Jordan Love?
Honestly, I mean, from my understanding, when they drafted Aaron Rodgers, it's kind of the same situation. They fell in love with the quarterback. He was supposed to he gotten talked up until like top 10 potential in terms of where he might have got picked. Fell out of that. And the Packers were sitting there with a situation where they're looking at Aaron Rodgers and thinking back to, 10 years ago when Brett Favre kind of held the franchise hostage every year by threatening to retire. And Favre was 36 when that started, and Rodgers is 36. And to be honest, if you really look at Aaron Rodgers' stats the past 3 years, he's been slowly declining. He's not exactly the way he was his MVP level type seasons from even 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe injuries are starting to catch up, just age or interest or who knows. But they were the benefactors of a weak division last year. Went 13-3, and I thought, maybe they just need, another one, because they had Devontae Adams as a Pro Bowler. Yeah. The running back was a Pro Bowler. So I mean, Aaron Jones, is that what it is?
Aaron Jones, yeah.
Yeah, Aaron Jones. So that he has weapons. So that excuse doesn't really fall with me. But it would have been good to see someone like T. Higgins from Clemson or somebody land with the Packers, but they went with the quarterback, and I think they did it as a sign to let Rodgers know, hey, we're not going to be held captive the way we were. We learned our lessons from the Brett Favre situation where every year was, I'm going to retire. Oh, I'm coming back. And the Packers were basically held at gunpoint every season waiting for Favre to make a decision. Maybe they decided, hey, we like this Jordan Love kid. He can sit behind Rodgers for a couple of years. And from what I've understood, Rodgers and Love have already communicated with each other and reached out. So I don't think it'll be a situation like it was before where, Brett Favre really had nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers. He didn't look at himself as a mentor or anything. I think Rodgers will take a different approach to that. He's well aware that he's 36 and that, he did say he wanted to play till 40 plus like Brady and Breeze, but it may not be with the Packers, here down the road here. He's probably on his last big deal. And, it's sad, but it's the business of the NFL. Rarely do guys get to play start to finish with the same team for their entire career. And it'll be something to keep an eye out on for sure.
Yeah, it certainly will. Let's go back to San Francisco really quick. They did the same thing this year that they did last year. They go defense with their first pick in the first round, and then they get a wide receiver. Deebo Samuel was the receiver they picked. This year, Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State. Wow. I mean, you want to talk about someone, as crazy as this sounds, you want to talk about a receiver that was underrated. You got Brandon Ayuk, and now he's in that 49ers system.
Yeah, and again, the 49ers, they don't, with Jimmy Garoppolo, you're never going to see Jimmy Garoppolo throwing for 400 yards and having, 50 pass attempts or anything like that.
Right.
They're just not built that way.
Right.
They're more of a grind it out, run the ball down your throat. They literally lost the Super Bowl because they stopped running the ball. It was that simple. They just stopped running the ball, and it was working. And a lot of the Chiefs were saying in the post game of that Super Bowl that they were happy that the
49ers stopped running the ball
because they couldn't stop it.
Right.
Yeah, they couldn't stop it. So, it's good to have the weapons on the outside to keep defenses honest. The Deebo Samuel pick last year was a great pickup because he can play almost like a flanker position.
Yep.
Direct snaps out of the backfield, handoff sweeps and stuff like that. And then he can also run routes. Same here. I think they pick guys that can do multiple things out of multiple positions to help out. But make no mistake about it, the 49ers are still about running the ball and stopping the run. And they'll just do things today or over the course of the rest of this weekend to ensure they can continue doing the brand of football that they instilled last year.
Desmond Johnson of The Rundown joining me to talk all things NFL draft. And in case you missed it, Trent Williams, all-pro tackle, headed from Washington to San Francisco for a couple of draft picks. And I'll say it again, the 49ers are playing chess while the rest of the NFC is playing checkers. We'll keep you abreast on everything that's going on. Thanks a lot for the time, my friend. I truly appreciate it.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Got some more stuff for you after the break.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. Okay. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Time to rise and grind.
Are you kidding me? Holy un smoke!
And let's get this banter going.
It's bacon!
This is Snowman in the Morning.
Does anybody else feel like a fried egg?
And it begins now.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell,
I think I just broke my chair.
He did what?
Has anybody ever told you you have a serious impulse control problem?
There is but one cause for me to follow. Almighty the bomb!
And here we go.
Oh, yeah! The kick, and here it comes. Swing and a miss! Swing and a miss! Swing and a miss! And a World Series Game 7 winning Curly W is in the books. The celebration is on. The Washington Nationals are the world champions.
You golden blank staggered black skeleton and blinkety blank bunker, you trying to do? Of all that low dirty...
Johnson is three-point territory, but guarded tightly. Johnson cuts left, now fires a three. It is good, and he's fouled. It counts, and he is fouled.
Do you believe it? He did what?
Hour 2. Rolling right along here on the program, and I want to bring back an old friend who I haven't had on in a while, Mr. Perry Miles. Mr. Miles, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Still dealing with this quarantine, man. I don't like it anymore.
I don't know anyone that really likes the quarantine. I mean, people are out of work. Broadcasters don't have the same kind of, jobs. People on the broadcasts are falling ill. Just heard of a few entertainers that passed away. But all in all, I mean, virtual businesses are doing a lot better than ones that did these kinds of services in person.
Yeah.
Which is something to be expected.
Yeah,
something to be expected.
Yeah, totally to be expected. You had a few notes that you wanted to talk about. What you got on your mind?
So, when I look at this, I always think of something as glass half full. Yeah. And two of the more pressing stories in sports that actually were sports stories, I feel like Tom Brady's committed more crimes this week than he ever did in New England in his 20 years. Whether they were accidental or on purpose. And think about it. First, he goes into a Tampa park and gets told that he can't go in there by a city employee, and on the call with Mayor Cantor of Tampa and Mayor Christman of St. Petersburg, they talk about that story, and all of a sudden, they said, it was Mr. Tom Brady, and Christman's like, oh my gosh. And it was unbelievable. And then a couple of days later, because Brady will never quit trying to do the best that he can for his football team, goes into the wrong house in Tampa, and apparently all the houses in Davis Islands look relatively similar, except for the one that he's staying at, which is the proud owner of Mr. Derek Jeter over there.
Yeah,
but it's so weird. And then of course Rob Gronkowski coming down here, and quite a few people who are Patriots fans, ex-girlfriends who are Patriots fans, and employees who are ex-Patriots fans, they're not too happy right now. They basically think that Belichick cost his team any chance this year of going to a Super Bowl. They felt that Rob Gronkowski last year would have been enough to beat the Titans and eventually beat the Chiefs, which is what their next matchup would have been.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, more crimes committed by Tom Brady in like a week than he ever did in 20 years in New England. It baffles my mind.
Perry Miles on the program with me. There are some venues, as I'm looking at your notes here, there are some entertainment venues that are opening back up. Did I read that right?
Have you looked at the news regarding Jacksonville Beach, Treasure Island, a few places?
I have.
As a matter of fact, like, there's so many Facebook photos of people going out on a boat. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, Florida has not really been a hot spot the way that New York has, or New Jersey, or Atlanta in some cases has been.
Yeah.
And people are still going out as if everything's back to normal again. And even in Georgia, they opened up, on a limited basis, of course, but they opened up tattoo shops, hair salons, many of the service industries. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, do people really want to do this, or are they getting ready for 2 to 3 months down the road so that way other organizations like Tinder or Bumble, or in a more sophisticated case, a JDate or an eHarmony or whatever, can make more business?
Mm-hmm.
It baffles my mind that people, in spite of this, would go to these kinds of lengths just to go to a beach.
Yeah.
That way. It's one thing if you're exercising, but you could exercise on Pinellas Trail in St. Pete. You could exercise anywhere. You could do like 15, 20, 25 minutes of jumping jacks and would have the same impact as running for 3 miles on the beach.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they just extended here where I am the stay-at-home moratorium until May 8th. It was set to expire this week, and now they extended it. Have they extended it in your area?
They, as far as I know, no. They're looking to open things up. Florida was one of the last states to close things down.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, as you can tell by the Tom Brady news, they kept their word. They treated Tom Brady as if he was as if he were a regular person, not the biggest celebrity to come to Tampa Bay in 20 years. And hey, I know you laugh, but it's possibly the greatest thing to keep everyone in check. That even this applies to someone with his kind of standing.
Yeah, it does.
Equal opportunity.
Indeed. Perry Miles joining me here on the program. The reopening of some entertainment values, how does that affect sports as we know it right now?
When you say the reopening, are you talking about the NBA horse contest? Are you talking about a virtual, potentially beer pong tournament?
I'm talking about all of it. I'm talking about all of it.
I had an opportunity to watch the horse matchup between all those celebrities, between the WNBA, NBA, and even some real entertainers.
Mm-hmm.
Or, just in general entertainers. And it was not exciting. And if the
really
NBA goes to no fans again, okay, I'm just being honest with you. If it goes to no fans again, except maybe a litany of like 20 people in golf, or maybe 100 people or 200 people scattered in a basketball arena.
Yeah.
I mean, the players will still play. They'll still earn their dollars through TV advertising and TV revenues. It's not the same without the fans because of the energy, the hostility, the camaraderie that comes with that.
Mm-hmm.
The purchasing inside the venue. The teams don't make almost any money on the tickets. They make the money on the advertising.
Yep.
And then they also make it on the concessions. Because the ticket, let's say you're in Charlotte, you're going to a Bobcats game. You could probably get a ticket for $20. So if you did $20 a ticket times, let's say 20,000 tickets, I don't know what the capacity is. That's roughly $400,000 for a game, which is a nice amount of money.
Yeah.
But as you know, the Charlotte Bobcats salary cap is in the multiple millions.
Yeah, hundreds of millions.
not to mention the travel and the hotels and everything else that comes with that. So there's no way to make money with just tickets. It comes with the concession. So it comes with whether people buy cotton candy or peanuts or beer or other items that will help the business to grow.
Mm-hmm. It also helps with the. It also helps with the. I want to call them box seats, but the suites. That's what I'm looking for. It also helps with the suites and the money they make with selling the suites for a night before season.
Part of the reason the Yankees didn't care about either doubling or tripling some of their seat prices was because they were able to charge more for the box seats and the luxury boxes.
Yeah.
Basically, any seat behind home plate, any luxury boxes, they either tripled, quadrupled, or quintupled the prices. In response, the advertisers who were buying those luxury seats had signage out there, so they got their exposure.
Yep.
They probably had some sort of TV package associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
So if they spent $200,000 or $400,000 or $600,000 for advertising, and then let's say they spent $40,000, $50,000 on seats a year or something along those lines, whatever it is, they wind up making a huge amount of money on that because of all the residuals.
True.
The Yankees give them an opportunity.
Yeah, the opportunity lies. Opportunity's there, man. But as a fan, I'm just waiting for it to all to open back up. Part A and Part B, I want it to happen safely. I don't want to rush anything. I don't want to rush anything back. The NBA fans I've spoken to, they want to rush it back because they want to see the Lakers and LeBron, don't get me started, win another title. Yeah, you know how I feel about that particular subject.
Well, I do, but keep in mind that there are other teams out west that if the season were to start again, that those teams, I think, could defeat the Lakers under healthy circumstances.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
One of them is out east in the Milwaukee Bucks.
Milwaukee Bucks
with Giannis and the cast of second and third stars that they have.
Yep.
Chris Middleton. I'm not mistaken. Chris Middleton too.
Yeah.
Brogdon. No, Brogdon's in Indiana, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the Clippers. You never ever count out Kawhi Leonard.
Never.
Especially the fact that he beat the Warriors last year.
Yep.
And here's an interesting tidbit, too. If there is no more NBA season and there's no NBA playoffs, you know that every NBA fan would say, oh, why, Perry? Why are you saying this? The interesting tidbit is, conceivably, the Golden State Warriors could make their sixth consecutive NBA Finals next year with the cast of characters coming back healthy. With Draymond Green getting a cast with Curry, Thompson, Wiggins, and let's not forget potentially either the number one pick and Milwaukee Bucks fans are going to absolutely hate this, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Or Karl Anthony Towns. Or Karl Anthony Towns from Minnesota. You know, I put the rumor out there that Karl Anthony Towns could wind up in Golden State. You know, and there's also rumor that Giannis could wind up in Golden State. So if there's no NBA World Championship Series this year, one of those two will wind up in San Francisco.
I believe that will happen, but I believe the funny thing is Milwaukee, even though they have a great new facility over there, it's still a small market city in the Midwest.
Yep.
And that's not named Chicago.
True.
And until the smaller markets can equate and provide the kind of lap of luxury that is there, I don't see Giannis returning to Milwaukee once he becomes a free agent, which, by the way, is next year.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's no championship this year for Milwaukee. Does Milwaukee take a chance, or do they want to get something for it? And the answer is I think the Warriors, it would behoove them to trade the number one pick if they can get a guy like Giannis. I would not trade the number one overall pick or the number two, however that flies, for Karl Anthony Towns. I believe they're very, very different players.
Yeah.
I think Giannis is the best player in basketball. I believe Karl Anthony Towns is in the top 15.
Understood. Perry Miles joining me here on the program. Tell everybody where they can find you, my friend.
So I have a company called Miles Smart Tutoring. It's based out of St. Petersburg, Florida. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. MilesSmartTutoring.com. We deal with a lot of sports people that are going into colleges and so on. But we also help people to finish homework assignments because at this time, it's been a very difficult struggle for many parents. Parents who have not seen this kind of work in possibly 5, 10, 15 years. And I've heard of situations like this where socially and emotionally things get much tighter, especially when people are around each other. It's nice to have a break once in a while from people that you've seen all the time. So we're helping those individuals to not only complete homework assignments, do well in those assignments, but essentially indirectly repair certain kinds of relationships that could otherwise be ruined due to this pandemic. And we want to help people.
MilesSmartTutoring.com is where you can find them, and you can also find them on this program. In the very near future, you can have them on every week. So we're gonna get that. We're gonna get that set up. Thanks a lot, my friend. I appreciate the time.
No problem. Thank you, Brian.
I'm gonna roll on after this.
This is Snowman in the Morning,
I did not need to be told that.
where true sports talk lives.
Excellent.
Can't wait.
But to help me break down the draft, the one and only Mike Debate from Full Press Coverage joins me. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on your show this morning and talking a little NFL draft and the aftermath of what was an interesting weekend in the NFL.
Interesting to say the least. Let's dive right in. Big trade happened between the Redskins and the 49ers. First of all, I say a happy retirement to one Joe Staley, the longtime left tackle of the 49ers who graced the number 74 a la Steve Wallace. And he's riding off into the sunset after playing 2 Super Bowls. But then Trent Williams is now welcome to San Francisco. You talk about a move. They get a 7-time Pro Bowler to replace a 6-time Pro Bowler, so that position is taken care of. And we all know who they selected with the 13th pick. The floor is yours, Mike.
Absolutely. And with the 13th pick, we called this a couple of weeks ago, and you really called it before even I did, and that Javon Kinlaw would be the selection at number 13, 14 for the San Francisco 49ers. And to me, this pick made so much sense. I saw a lot of vitriol being thrown at it over the weekend about, value, and, they drafted him too high. And believe me, being up here in New England, I know all about vitriol being thrown at picks that are thrown at guys for, allegedly taking someone too high in there.
Right.
Look, San Francisco used the 14th pick on Javon Kinlaw. To me, he's a massive athlete, a singular athlete. I believe he's going to replace DeForest Buckner quite well. I really like the fit that he has in San Francisco. I don't really care about what pundits are going to say about certain fits and where you should take this guy and, he should be, he's a second rounder or he's a late first rounder. You can put a draft grade all you want on people. What matters is the team that takes him. And obviously they felt that he was worth that selection. And I think San Francisco is going to, do very well with that and go quite nicely along with it. Then they trade up from 31 to 25. They take Brandon Ayuk. Again, another selection that a lot of people were scratching their heads about. I don't understand why. I think Ayuk develops. He's very, very big, great impact player after the catch. I think he fits very nicely in a Kyle Shanahan's offense. I think the cost to move up 6 spots was a wash. I really do. Some people might think it was too expensive, but I like San Francisco's aggressiveness in this draft. They obviously put targets on these people, and they pulled the trigger on them. And I think it's going to reap some benefits for them. And I think they're really going to end up doing well.
They're going to do very, very well, especially with the pieces that they have in place. You and I have talked very much about Javon Kinlaw. And, people said, we should the 49ers should get receivers to replace Emmanuel Sanders. Look, this was a receiver deep draft. Very, very deep with receivers. The 49ers had their pick. Of course, the talk was CeeDee Lamb. But I like the way that they snatched Brandon Ayuk. And then on Saturday, I love the way that they snatched Jawan Jennings out of Tennessee.
I love the way they snatched Jawan Jennings. Again, another high-impact player that can make a real difference on this team. And I love the way he fits in with the culture and with the ability for the 49ers to be able to move forward. One pick that I think I was really going to pay dividends for them alongside a guy like George Kittle, and that's Charlie Warner.
Yes.
6th round. Very good blocker, tremendous tight end, somebody that I had looked at as a possibility for the Patriots. That was a big position of need for them going into this draft. I really believe that he's a better receiver than he's gotten the opportunity to show when he was at Georgia, and I think he's going to be a nice fit in this offense, especially alongside a guy like Kittle. So I love the Warner pick. I do love the Jennings pick. Again, I think San Francisco, top to bottom, had a very good draft, and I can't understand why some people are not as high on it as I've been. I like what they did in just about every aspect of the other choices that they made.
One thing I said to you over the course of the weekend, the 49ers are still playing chess while the rest of the NFC is playing checkers, filling out their immediate need, yes. But if you look at the 49ers and how They have been built, especially since John Lynch took over as GM and Kyle Shanahan took over as the coach. They're not just building for now. They're building for the long term.
Yeah, they really are building for the long term. And I think a pick like this, with Kinlaw in mind, I think, going with Ayuk in the latter part of the first round. And then as you saw how the draft progressed for them, this is a team that is not making any apologies for contending right now. They're going to do that. That's their primary focus. But the players that they picked up are going to allow them to remain in contention for quite some time. San Francisco got a lot better this weekend, and I really think a lot of teams in the NFC need to take note of that, especially as we move toward the 2020 season beginning.
I want y'all to keep an eye on this name out of Washington. He was signed by the 49ers as an undrafted free agent, Salvon Ahmed. The 49ers sent Matt Breida to Miami for a couple of picks. They also sent Marquise Goodwin packing. He's off to Philadelphia. And, some of 49er fans I spoke to got worried. Then we selected Javon Jennings. But keep your eye on this fellow. Salvon Ahmed could become another in the long line of jackknife running backs that the 49ers made famous.
That is such a perfect way to describe him. And you turned me on to him a little bit last night, and I did my due diligence on him a little today. I actually really like this pickup as an undrafted free agent. You mentioned the type of a jackknife running back. I think that's such an apropos term because he does. He's the type of guy that can run north to south. He can go east to west if he needs to. If he needs to pick up yardage, he is very capable of being able to go horizontal before he goes lateral. I like this kid for them. I think he's going to bring them a lot. Look, Breida was one of those types of workhorse backs that I don't know if he ever really necessarily got a chance to, fall into his own last year. I think he was overshadowed a little bit, but there's still a lot left in the tank for him. I like that if he's going to go somewhere, he's going to Miami, going to play under a system under Brian Flores, who knows how to utilize those type of backs that may not always make the flashy play, but they're always going to be there for the handoff, and they're always going to give you 110%. So good landing spot for Breida going to Miami, but I really like this pickup for San Francisco, and he's someone definitely I'm going to keep a sharp eye on in training camps. And as the roster building progresses, I think this could get very interesting in San Francisco.
Absolutely. Salvon Ahmed will be a perfect complement for that running tandem, and it's going to be another triple play of running backs. Mostert, I believe, will begin as the starter. Tevin Coleman, of course, will be beside him. Juszczyk, your fullback. Werner can work as the H-back, the tight end you talked about out of Georgia. Salvon Ahmed is going to make some noise in San Francisco. I just really feel it. Keep your eyes on him. I want to look at the number 6 pick by the Chargers. Justin Herbert out of Oregon. There's pushback either way. You either love the pick or you hate the pick. It was time for the Chargers, I think, to move on from Phillip Rivers, and you want to get someone that could get acclimated in that system. And we won't know the answers until about 8 games down the road, but I have a sneaking suspicion the Chargers made the right call.
I believe they did, especially for the way that they're looking to move forward. I think Herbert brings a maturity. I think he brings a sure-handedness, and I think he brings stability to the position. No one is a bigger fan of the type of potential that a quarterback can have of Tua Tagovailoa than myself. I like his fit in Miami. Again, I know Brian Flores very well. I know his system. I know his philosophy, and I think Tua can thrive there. But I think the Chargers also recognize that a quarterback, a head coach that has a quarterback run tandem in mind, the way Anthony Lynn does, realizes that Justin Herbert is going to be the better choice long term there. I really do like the pick for them. I think Herbert has a maturity. I think he has the arm, the intangibles, everything you need to be able to succeed, especially knowing that he's going to come in and replace a legendary quarterback for the Chargers for a number of years in Phillip Rivers. That's not easy to do, and I think Herbert is better equipped to do that in L.A. But the Chargers move that I really liked over the weekend was jumping back into the first round, picking up Kenneth Murray, who's a guy that I had my eye on for the Patriots. Prototypical linebacker, gives you that ability, has range, has power, really is a big asset against the run. If there's one area of the Chargers defense that I think struggled a little bit, it was on run defense. Their pass rush is still extremely formidable when you take a look at Ingram and Bosa on either side, one of the best pass rush combinations in the NFL. So I think right now, I like their draft. I know a lot of people are kind of wishy-washy on it. There are some that will be wait and see. But ultimately, at the top of the line, I think they made the right move by going with Justin Herbert.
Let's go back toward the top of the draft and look at the number 2 pick, Chase Young, going to the Washington Redskins. Identity piece indeed, especially for a Redskins defense that broke more than they bent.
Yeah, they definitely did. And look, this was the right move by Washington. He is a superstar pass rusher in the making. If you want to talk about a player that can revolutionize a defense, Chase Young is the guy. He is right there in terms of quality. I think that he's got all the intangibles to be able to anchor this defense for a number of years to come. So I really like this pick. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. I don't think there was any one that expected them to go in a different direction. Once you knew that Joe Burrow was off the table at pick number 1, Chase Young was a logical fit for the second pick for Washington, and they definitely made the right move. This kid has, again, superstar written all over him, and he's an explosive player. And I just think he's going to be a great player on this defense for a number of years.
Speaking of an explosive player, let's go to Arizona. Isaiah Simmons lands in their lap out of Clemson. And I'll tell you what, he's going to make an impact very quickly.
Simmons is probably one of the more, and I know I'm going to raise a little eyebrow when I say this, but I think he was actually one of the more underrated players in this draft. I think he might have been a higher pick than number 8. Very, very good for the Arizona Cardinals that he slipped to them. At this point, I think he gives the Cardinals that type of versatile defender that they've been lacking. He can play multiple spots. He's not a safety. He's not a linebacker. He's really, I think, both, if you take a look at it. He's got the ability to come up. He can play in a 3-4 and a 4-3 set. He's one of those types of players that, again, that can change the complexity of a defense. And Arizona is explosive on offense. They need defensive youth, and they need defensive stability. Simmons provides it both. I really like this pick for them, and I think he's going to a very good spot where he can shine.
Speaking of wide receivers, C.D. Lamb goes to the Dallas Cowboys at number 17. They pick up another offensive weapon, but looking at the other side of the coin, there's an offensive line they didn't address, and there's some defensive issues they didn't address.
Yeah, I think that, to me, Dallas had bigger needs. But when you see a talent like CeeDee Lamb available, it's very difficult to pass him up. And I was very surprised that it took as long as it did for him to come off the board. I really think that he's got, a lot of potential, and I think he's going to be a very good wide receiver in this league. So we'll see if he can get into a crowded and very high-octane offense in Dallas right now. Clavon Chiason, I think, was a good pick for them for defensive purposes. I really like his game and what he's going to be able to bring to the table. Trevon Diggs at quarterback is another guy that a lot of people were pretty high on. I think he slipped a little bit more than I thought he was going to. To me, he's going to end up playing dividends in that secondary. Neville Gallimore as a defensive tackle is someone that can provide a big body up front. Dallas had a little trouble defending against the run last year, so he should help out a little bit. So they did address some needs, but again, they had bigger needs at the top of the shelf, and it was a little surprising to me that they went in the direction that they did. But I guess they went for the most talent, and it's hard to argue. Lamb is one of the best wide receivers in this class. To
the AFC South, and we look at the Indianapolis Colts and their second-round pick, wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. out of USC. You want to make an offense more potent? 1, they're going to stay healthy with Phillip Rivers, and 2, you add a talent like this.
Yeah, I mean, Pittman Jr. to me is another guy that I think should have gotten a lot more play in this draft than he did. I was surprised that he wasn't ranked as high as he was. Slipped a little bit, but again, this is a guy who's a tremendous route runner, one of the more cerebral and one of the more dedicated route runners in this draft. I really like his intangibles. He's got a quick step. He stutters a little bit. I think he'll need to work a little bit with some of the receivers that they have in Indianapolis to shore that up. but they had a need there at this position, and I think he's going to pay dividends for them. This was a great pickup for them. And again, it's hard to argue with, their picks from top to bottom. Jacob Eason, I think, is going to be a guy that can really help out, learn a lot from Phillip Rivers. Eason has a relative cannon for an arm. Again, a guy that I scouted a little bit for the Patriots, thought he might be a nice fit in Foxborough. There is some decision-making and some intangibles that he needs to work on. He's going to learn from one of the best. Phillip Rivers has done this job well for a number of years. Don't let the interceptions that he threw last year fool you. There's still a little bit left in the tank with Phillip. Yep. I think a lot of that was because of the situation he was in, a lot of the flux of the offense, the way they ran it in Los Angeles, but you saw some of the potential that he had. So learning under him, I think, is going to be a good learning experience. I like what Indianapolis did over the weekend, and I think they got a lot better this weekend as well.
I really think they got a lot better, too. And another side note, speaking of Phillip Rivers, he's now being coached by a quarterback in Frank Reich. And you want to talk about a guy that's had some success. He had some success with Andrew Luck. Jacoby Brissett was the starter for the most part. Just a lot of injuries at the quarterback positions. Now you get someone stable in Phillip Rivers, and then you got your future in Jacob Eason.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, you look at a runner like Marlon Mack, and you take a look at, receivers like T.Y. and the guys that they have on staff that are going to be able to nurture this team and move this team going forward. They really had, I think, one of the toughest, gut punches that you can get as a team last year when Andrew Luck decides to walk away in the midst of training camp and you weren't prepared for it. Jacoby Brissett came in, did an admirable job. I think it's probably a sign that he's not the answer to their quarterback problems. I do expect him to be moved. And I think ultimately it'll be good for both sides to be able to start fresh. But again, I love the pick of Pittman, and I really was impressed by them going with Eason. I think this is going to be a perfect opportunity for Eason to learn under arguably a future Hall of Famer, and someone that has played in a number of wartime situations, like a guy like Phillip Rivers.
To the NFC North, and we look at the Chicago Bears. The Bears pick up a tight end in Cole Kmet out of Notre Dame. I love this pick for several reasons. Anybody who is familiar with the Monsters of the Midway on offense, they always had a tight end. If you go back to 1985, you remember Emery Moorhead, Desmond Clark from 2006. They both made Super Bowl appearances. You get this young fellow in the offense, and you get some continuity on offense, and look out, the Bears may be roaring again.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, the Bears had 10 tight ends on staff. Why would they go with Cole Kmet? Because he was the best one available. And I think just because you have a wealth of numbers at a position doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy with the depth at the position. And if you have the ability to pick up a guy like Kmet, who arguably was, I think, the most talented and the best complete tight end in this draft, you take that opportunity. And kudos to the Chicago Bears for doing that. You mentioned the Bears draft as a whole. One pick that I think I would keep an eye on if I'm a Bears fan, 5th rounder, Travis Gibson. I like this pick for them. I think he has value as that long type of linebacker that can play the run, do enough as a pass rusher. You put him in there in a defense that already has guys like Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack. This is an opportunity for him to really grow into a true force on that defense. Keep an eye on him, Bears fans. I think he could be the sleeper in that defense that a lot of people have been looking for. That was a pick that really, really raised my eye. I like him a lot with that.
Going back to the 49ers, the defending NFC champs, also in the 5th round, Colton McKivitz, they pick up out of the tackle out of West Virginia. The 49ers suffered a lot of injuries, and most of them came along the offensive line. You get Trent Williams back. You expect Weston Richburg to come back healthy, the free agent they signed from the Giants. And then you get this young fella who was a bully up front. And yes, he played in the Big 12. But every football team who has been good, no matter what conference you're playing in college, you got to be a bully up front. And the 49ers got one.
They truly did. And again, offensive skill positions may get the headlines, but to me, the battles of a championship football team are won on the lines. And I think that's what you see with a lot of these players and a lot of these great teams that know building depth at that position is so important. Again, I love that pick, and I think that it was a smart pick by the 49ers. You look at teams like, and I'll keep coming back to the Patriots, but a lot of people are maligning their draft, and especially their day 3 selections and their day 2 selections, which are really getting panned. But the Patriots know the value of building an offensive line better than anyone. Michael Onwenu, Justin Herron, these are picks that not a lot of people thought were necessary picks, but they're going to build that offensive line, and they're going to strengthen an offensive line to allow them to continue and compete. This is something that San Francisco knew last year. Suffered a lot of injury, still came within an eyelash of winning the Super Bowl. You add quality youth depth at the position, which they did with this pick. I like it a lot. And again, it builds into that character. It builds into that philosophy that Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and the brain trust over in San Francisco are building. That's how you win championships. Strengthen, solidify the offensive line, give that running attack an opportunity to be able to run through freely, give Jimmy Garoppolo some time in the pocket. It's going to be an exciting offense to watch this year, even though they did suffer. Obviously you mentioned the loss of Goodwin. You mentioned, the loss of Breda. There's still a lot of talent there. Debo Samuel, Jalen Hurd, guys that we've discussed. Again, I feel like Brandon Ayuk coming in and being able to give them, pop and a little bit of yards after the catch potential when it comes to the wide receiver position. And again, they boast the best tight end in the league. I say that even with Rob Gronkowski coming back to Tampa Bay. He's 1 year removed from playing the last time. And the last time that he was on the field, he was not quite the Gronk of old. He's still going to be good, folks. He's still going to give Tampa Bay a formidable, weapon. But again, I still think if you're looking at the top tight end, top to bottom in this league, you have to look at George Kittle. To me, he's the most complete package.
He is the most complete package, and the 49ers are, once again, the most complete team. Let's stay in the NFC West. Let's stay with San Francisco. You and I have talked about this for the better part of a month. How are they going to replace DeForest Buckner? In walks Javon Kinlaw, and he is perfect. You can move him around. You can move Bosa around. You can switch those ends, keep the inside the way that it is. But Javon Kinlaw is an absolute bully up front, and he's going to terrorize those offensive lines in the NFC West.
He really is. And I was a little bit surprised. I was a little more surprised that a guy like Kinlaw didn't get as much, I don't want to say as much notoriety, because he did get notoriety, but I really was surprised that this pick was panned as heavily as it was. Look, again, the type of defender that can block out. He can move laterally. He's got good fluid movement when he has to move laterally. But when he's ready to go and he's ready to move forward, he's got that extra spring in his step that allows him to be able to beat guys to the punch. He's got power. He's got size. He's got speed. I think this was a great pick for San Francisco, and he really fills the shoes of a guy like Buckner. He's not going to fill them completely and immediately right away, but he still provides the opportunity to be able to fit into this system, and I think sooner rather than later. I'd be really, really surprised if he's not either a full-time starter on this team right off the bat or a serious contributor for this team. You're going to hear his name a lot this year in San Francisco, and rightfully so. I think he's fitting into a great system.
To the NFC South in Carolina, they start with Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn, to defend some defensive needs with that team.
Yeah, Carolina was another team that a lot of people were pretty high on their draft. And look, it's hard to argue the result. I think that when you look at what they were able to do, bring in a guy like Derek Brown, dominant lineman. He can move blockers around with ease. We saw him do it several times in college. I think he's going to be able to do it. Give Teddy Bridgewater a little bit of help on in that team as well on the defensive side of the ball. I like how they brought in a guy like Yader Gross-Matos, who I know a lot of people had some things to say about him. I was actually very high on Gross-Matos, believe it or not. Another player that I had scouted a little bit for the Patriots, that type of linebacker that can come in, physical, athletic, can really help out on the edge. To me, I think he has the ability to get after the quarterback. Really like what I saw from him out of Penn State. Jeremy Chin, to me, is another good pickup for this team. Big, fast, explosive safety. built like a Greek god. I mean, I don't know if anybody saw like the combine, photos when it came to this kid. He's he's big, he's physical, and he's going to be a hit in that backfield because he's going to be able to give you that speed and athleticism that I think they're going to need. But look, there's a lot. They really went heavily on defense. There's no question about it. All defense on this. Troy Pride Jr., I think, was a good pickup for them at cornerback. I think he's going to help in that secondary. To me, there's a lot of good players here that I think they really have the ability to be able to move forward. And I like Kenny Robinson out of the XFL as well. I like him getting a shot in this team. It's going to be a fun team to watch this year, Carolina. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them because of New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and even Atlanta getting a little bit more of the headlines. Watch out for Carolina. That's going to be a fun team.
Last but not least, we'll stay in the NFC South. Tristan Wirfs goes to Tampa because they have to protect arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game.
Wirfs definitely was a great fit. I loved what Tampa Bay did this weekend. I really and truly did. They had needs. They identified those needs, and they went with them. Look, you can argue that Tampa Bay was a winner before they even started the first, draft. Picking up Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski in the same offseason is pretty formidable. And I mean, they're really, that's an upgrade like you can't imagine. Yeah, it cost them a fourth round pick, but I mean, look, you bring in two of the greatest to ever play. They're each respective positions, and it's hard to argue. But Wirfs arguably is one of the best offensive linemen in this draft class. I think he will end up being just that. He's the type of guy that can provide such stability on that offensive line. Tom Brady had to be loving that pick, and I'm sure that patented grin that Tom has was grinning from ear to ear when they made that selection. But look, they weren't done there. Antoine Winfield Jr. was a huge pickup. Great safety, another guy that has the ability to really make a name for himself this year. I think he's got a great chance to make some big plays. We saw him do it at Minnesota. I really like the way he's coming into this team. I like, obviously, I think Tyler Johnson coming in at wide receiver, giving them another option in what's already a loaded wide receiver core in Tampa Bay. I like their draft. They were one of the big winners of this weekend to me because I think they had check boxes next to all of their needs, and I think they checked them all on over the weekend.
Yes, they certainly did. We got more on this draft breakdown throughout the coming weeks. We'll give you a division by division, team by team breakdown beginning next week. That's Mike Debate, one of the men in charge of full press coverage and my NFL insider here on the program. Love having him. Love talking some football. Thanks a lot, my friend. Truly appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for having me. Take care. Have a great week, and I look forward to coming back and doing it again real soon.
We'll do it again next week as we go division by division. As I talked about, we're not done. We're just getting started, especially with this particular program. Stick around. More draft talk coming your way. And please do me a favor. Share this show with your friends. Back in a flash.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. Okay. Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Time to rise and grind.
Are you kidding me? Holy un smoke!
And let's get this banter going.
It's bacon!
This is Snowman in the Morning.
Does anybody else feel like a fried egg?
And it begins now.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell,
I think I just broke my chair.
He did what?
Has anybody ever told you you have a serious impulse control problem?
There is but one cause for me to follow. Almighty the bomb!
And here we go.
Oh, yeah!
And that's hit pretty well and pretty deep to left. Gardner is going back, looking up. See you later!
You goddamn blank staggered black skeleton and blinkety blank punk are you trying to do? Of all that low dirty...
Michael on the drive across the lane. Turnaround shot. Got it. 63 for Jordan.
Do you believe it?
Murphy picked out of midair to Amani. Set him up. Rooney. Hartland! 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 Jeremy Rooney! After the giveaway was forced by Amani. What a play by Tony Amani. And Jeremy Rooney fired it home at the 123 mark. And the Blackhawks have come back from the dead in this series.
Hour 3. Okay, so you guys know I've had some great guests on the program. I will continue to get great guests on the program. And then I got a surprise. The fellow that you're going to hear on the other side of the hotline has a national championship to his credit. And he earned that national championship, and I hope I say this correctly, at the Ohio State University.
That's right. That's right.
Have to say it right. The Ohio State University. This is Maurice Hall, and he joins me right now. How are you, my friend?
Oh, man, things are good. Things are good. How's everything with you?
This coronavirus needs to quit.
I know. That's right, man. It's crazy out here right now.
It
crazy.
is. How are you handling the shut-in situation?
Oh man, you know it has its days, man. You know, I have 3 young girls, so I have 3 kids under the age of 5. So it gets crazy, man. It's a lot of emotion, a lot of bickering, and I'm trying to. I think God has been giving me patience during this time because that's all I can have right now. It's rough, man.
3 girls under the age of 5? Wow.
Yeah, 4, 3, and 18 months. So,
well, fatherhood just pulled a triple play on you, my friend.
Man, hat trick for sure. Hat trick for sure. Man,
how do you handle it with them being so young in age and not that far apart in age? How do you handle it?
Well, you know, the good part is they're into an age where they can kind of play by themselves or play with each other.
Right.
The bad part is them playing with each other also results in them arguing or somebody end up crying or, somebody getting hurt literally at least 3-4 times an hour. So that is there's no getting anything done when they are around. So it is what it is, man.
From one father to another, I totally understand that, because just when you think you have a chance to get something done, there's a little one next to you, and you have 3 girls. I too am the parent of a daughter as well as a stepdaughter. And when those little ones look at you with those eyes, forget it. You can forget it because you're not. It's a wrap,
man. Yeah, they. You can't. I knew once after having the first one, I was going to turn into a punk, man. I knew it, and that's exactly what happened. And the older they get, it's just like, here's a car key. You know what I mean? Like, whatever car you want. I don't got the money, but
I'm gonna have to put it on credit for you. You know, it's just what it is. It's crazy, but that's you know, it's hard to say no, man.
It is hard. It is hard to say no. And what's going to be even crazier is, like you said, when they turn 15 and 16, and you got to beat every boy off with a stick.
Man, that's that's going to be the challenging time. My hope is I can instill in them now, you know, the discipline and the right thing to look out for. So I don't have to be that guy, but
you know
I'll
what?
be prepared nevertheless.
Every father is that guy. If you are the father of a daughter, as you are, as I am, if you are the father of a daughter, you are that guy. No matter how many times or how many years you try to instill in your girls, okay, this is what you look for in a man. This is what I have with your mother. This is, and look, you're going to turn into that guy because when the calls start happening, when the visits start happening, when they get to the age where they start looking at boys, and I do not condone this in any way. I am making a joke, folks. But from one father to another, how many times are you going to go, hey, look, can I have that shotgun over there so I can fend off some boys trying to come after my daughters?
Hey, man, shoot, I'm gonna try to leave it because hey, I feel like they might need to be more nervous about their mom because she is super overprotective. So I think we'll be good. You know, she already said that she's willing to go to jail. So you know,
the
it is
gauntlet
what it is.
has been laid down. Speaking of gauntlets, let's go back in time, take a stroll down memory lane to the 2002 season. And there's one game in particular that I want to touch on because I've had Jonathan Wells on before, another former Buckeye.
Yeah, I heard the J Dub interview. You know, that was cool. That was cool.
There's going to be more. There's going to be more Buckeyes on this program. But I want to take you back. Let's go back to 2002, take a stroll down memory lane. And the first game I want to look at was the last one of the regular season against that school up north.
That's right. Yeah,
I used to live in Columbus. And there are two games when Columbus goes upside down. Homecoming and when you know who comes to town.
That's right. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, that was a crazy game, man.
It was. Yeah,
it was exciting, you know, just because of the magnitude of what the game meant. On top of us being, 12-0 at the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it was, and then coming from, just it was so much emotion that was behind it. You know, I think this was the hope that the Ohio State fans had been wanting for so long. You know, I know when you talk to J Dub, where you had so many great teams in the 90s, where that should have been in a national championship and should have beaten that team up north, and for some reason or another could not get it done. So the magnitude of that and seeing that, like, we're literally almost to the promised land with our rival in the way. It was that whole week was stressful.
I bet it was.
It was pressure. It was all of that. You know, from former players to fans to I think everybody kind of felt it, man. But we prepared really well, and Coach Tress came in and he had already we had beat them obviously the year before, his first year. So we already came in with the confidence that we could beat them again, especially at home.
Right.
So it was just a matter. It felt like destiny with every, I think we had 4 or 5 or 6 close games that we end up being able to pull out. And, we knew it was going to be a fight. We knew going in, and, the players that they had some great players that made some amazing plays during that game. And it was just a matter of, who was going to continue to execute and at the end of the game. So
it was a different hero every week for the 2002 season.
It was.
When y'all beat that school up north, it was one of my favorite games to watch. The other one, and I will just say 2 words because the game I'm going to talk about now can be identified by 2 words. Holy Buckeye.
Yeah, everybody talks about that Purdue game, man.
Yeah.
That was exciting.
It was a full house at Purdue. I mean, it's a rarity now, but it was a full house at Purdue, and the play that produced Brent Musburger's comment of "Holy Buckeye," a gamble on 4th and 1.
Yeah,
and they didn't cover Michael Jenkins. Why?
Yeah, that was a horrible decision.
It was
horrible decision.
It was because Jenkins had been burning people all season. And I knew the folks at Purdue were reminded, you got to cover number 12. They didn't.
Got to cover number 12. Yeah, man. It was. I remember seeing the ball in there. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going? And he was going against a cornerback who I don't know well, but we ran track in high school against each other, and in high school because he was from Ohio as well, and he was a fast guy. But to see Mike kind of get past him, and then the ball being thrown perfectly by Craig, man, it was like, oh my goodness, that moment there. I think was like, okay, this is real.
It is.
This is real, man. We got a chance. Everything's falling into place.
And those two games, I got a third one I want to look at also. Those 2 games, the final home game of the year, the one where you beat Purdue, and then an unexpected challenge from Illinois on the road.
Yeah. It was freezing, that game. I remember I played the whole game, man. And Illinois,
I know it was freezing in Champaign.
It was so cold, and to the point where Illinois had a like the bench that you sit on.
Yes,
was a heated bench.
Yes, it was.
And there were things that were cut in between, so you could put your hands inside of it to warm your hands up.
Yes,
and that was the best thing ever. And I was still freezing. But it was we made some good plays, and we didn't really execute that well that game, honestly, and which is why it was probably so close. And fortunately, when we went down to the wire, we were able to really make some plays and obviously score a touchdown and overtime in order to really pull that off, man. But Illinois came, and we knew it. Everybody who we were playing against were going to give us their best, especially down when we were later on in the season, and they saw that we were getting a lot of recognition. Everybody was coming out to kind of knock us off, man. So Illinois played well, and they played with a lot of steam and thought they were going to do something.
Maurice Hall joining me here on the program, taking a stroll down memory lane. Man, you got to take me to Tempe, Arizona. January 2003, the national championship, and you're playing against the U. You're playing against Miami.
Playing against the greatest team in history. Oh, my goodness. Well, it was it was so surreal because, coming from, we went to the Outback Bowl the year before, Tampa, Florida. We went down there December 19th, didn't play till January 1st. So that was the absolute worst trip in history, right? So we're doing 2 practices a day, hitting. It was freezing one day, then it's sunny the next.
Right.
And we're it was like, man, what is going on? What are we doing here? We're here for Christmas. We're here for New Year's Eve.
Wait, what kind of vortex is going? What kind of vortex is going on in Texas, man?
for the Outback Bowl?
For Tampa, I beg your pardon. What kind of stuff is going on in Tampa? You freeze one minute, you warm the next, and by the time you get situated, you're like, wait a minute, does my body know how to react to this?
Exactly. But when we got off that plane in Tempe, man, and there was so many people there at the airport, and handing out hats and Tostitos chips, and it was a totally different experience, man. It was like, man, we've arrived,
Yes.
we were here to put in some work and then going to the Scottsdale Princess Hotel, where it was like a resort, and you're like, what is this? we felt like movie stars, man.
Right.
It was so crazy, and the great part was so many Buckeye fans came to support that it felt like home, man. It's like everywhere we went, it was
felt like the horseshoe.
Buckeyes were there. It was like, man, this is such an amazing feeling, and preparing for
it felt like the horseshoe, because there were more Ohio State fans than Miami fans, and I watched. I got that game in its original broadcast format. Y'all know I'm a broadcast head. I have that game in its original broadcast format. Keith Jackson and Dan Fouts were on the call. There were more Buckeye fans than Miami fans. And the overconfidence of the Hurricane fans was there. That's why they didn't turn out in droves. Buckeye fans,
which is understandable, because they're like, well, we've been winning like this for years.
Yeah, been there, done. They have the attitude of been there, done that. Buckeye fans, they came prepared. They said, we're going to see a national championship game and a national championship win, which brings this. Talk about the leadership of one Craig Krenzel.
Yeah. Craig, man. Craig was always a leader. He was always, he was quieter, freshman year, because, Steve was kind of the guy, and Steve, everybody knew about Steve, and Steve had the experience. And once Craig really stepped in, especially, that 2002 year, everybody kind of took to him, especially because Craig made so many plays that really helped us get out of situation with his feet or, whatever, that we trusted him. We knew that if we got in a bind, that somehow Craig was going to help us save that play.
And you could see it. You could see it all year. You could see it the entire
super smart guy
season.
Exactly. And he played like a veteran. So going to that game, we were all young. It was full of juniors and sophomores, and but we had battled that whole year. We had battled 13 games where everybody had given us their best, and now we're going up against the best.
Yeah.
And we just knew, we were going to have to lean on that leadership of Craig and obviously Dawson, Donnie, and so many other of the other players on the team that had seen and been a part of big games like this. So, but Craig, he was definitely second to none. I wouldn't trade him for a quarterback, for any other quarterback during that year.
No. Well, with the draft coming up this week, what kind of advice can you offer to the young men that might have their name called, whether it's round 1 or round 7?
Yeah, the crazy part is obviously the earlier rounds, the more secure things are for you. You're talking about Chase Young, you're talking about Joe Burrow, those guys projected to be top 5 picks. Their life's obviously going to change financially. The expectation is going to increase. We're paying you a lot more money, so we're expecting you to do the things you need to do in order to be great or be as great as we think you can be.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing college kids have to make sure they understand, because once you get to the league, man, it's not, there's organized, practice, but outside of that, it's kind of up to you to make sure you're eating right. And it's kind of up to you to make sure you're working out properly and doing everything you need to do. Because, in college, everything's kind of structured. And then once you get to the league, it's on you, so you have to make sure you have that discipline going into it where you can set yourself up to be successful. Now, once you go to, now you're talking about the later round, your 5th, 6th, 7th round, even, free agents, it's a different look, because now you have to go in there and really prove yourself, because basically they're saying that, we think you have potential, but we're not sold yet,
Right.
And that's a matter of, now you're going in there and you're competing against guys who are already there, who've already probably been there for a couple of years, that might have been on, injured reserve, or might have been on just scout team or the practice squad that are also trying to make the team. And you just have to go in there. You got to work hard. You got to really do even more, in my opinion, than maybe the first or second round guys, because when they're looking to make cuts, you're the first person they're going to be looking at. So it's up to you to show that you can do something different than somebody else in order to give them a reason to want to keep you on the roster.
So you made a gigantic leap from your football career to an acting career and pursued it the same way you pursued football. What took you to pursue acting?
So, well, it kind of happened where I was in Columbus. Once I finished with the Chargers, I decided I was going to go back to school and be an athletic director, because they get paid a lot of money. So I said, I'm going to do that, working under Gene Smith. And Gene's making, I think at the time Gene was making like $600,000-$700,000 a year, and I was like, "What? Done."
Right.
And then so I went and got my master's while I was working under him. At the same time, I was working as a sports analyst for the local NBC affiliate.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started doing that and started, reporting on obviously Ohio State, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Browns and the Bengals, I got a chance to really get comfortable in front of the camera. And then I also did a high school show called Football Friday Night, where we started doing skits to make it more fun for the actual show.
Right.
And the skits really turned into its own thing, where it became like the most popular high school show, in the state. So that kind of led me to say, man, this is kind of fun, and maybe I should just see what this is about. And I I took an acting class, and literally that first day I took that acting class, I had that same passion that I had for football growing up.
Right.
That passion of like, man, I could literally do this forever and without even getting paid if I could, and that's when I realized that was the next thing. And thankfully, it took me a couple of years to get there, but once I got there, that was what I felt like I had to move towards. And, I knew it wasn't going to happen in Columbus at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I gotta go where it's happening. And fortunately I was able to get out to LA, where I am now. And that was almost 11 years ago now. And, been fortunate and blessed to have an opportunity to be on some TV shows and some movies, and now also, write and produce some of my own stuff that, I'm super proud of, and
that's awesome.
Trying to make it in this business, man.
That is so awesome, and I am so blessed to have you on my program. And I share the same dream, because I have been told many times over I wouldn't succeed as a broadcaster, and yet this coming August officially will start my 25th year in broadcasting.
Wow.
7 of them as a
That's
sports
huge.
talk host. I've done play-by-play for 24 years. And one thing my wife has repeatedly said to me, she said, don't worry about the money you should have made. Worry about what you can do now in season 25 and let seasons 1 through 24. And I started thinking about this. I'm so excited to get to season 25. Not many, when you strike out on your own, not many get this far because they either quit or give up, or they let the dream die. And I'm not letting this die. And it's the same with you.
Yeah, man. No, gotta keep it going. And you know, there's obviously, as the longer you go, the more things that come up. You know, but you have to really, if it's something that's truly you're passionate about, you got to keep it going, man. But you know, things do get harder when you get married. When I started this, I was single and no kids. You know, now you're talking about married, coming up on 7 years, 3 kids, and you know, obviously those things, you know, have to take more priority than what you're used to doing, and and a lot of times, you know, people fall on into, well, I'm just going to do this, and I'm a sacrifice this to do this. But you know, I think the great part is you have a great support system, you know, with your wife who's definitely supportive of it, which I think helps so much.
It is.
And
it does.
Because of that, you know, it allows you to really get that time and that space to do, you know, that thing that's inside you that encourages you to make a difference. And that's what you're doing, man. So congrats to you.
Hey, best to you too. Thanks for coming on, and I hope to have you on quite a few times because I suspect college football will be back. So I'm going to sneak in some. I know I have a nationally syndicated program, but doggone if I don't get some Buckeye talk and some Big Ten talk on with you. I'd love to have.
Got to do it.
I'd love to have. I leave you with this: 2004 was your last season at Ohio State, and as much as I love the Bucks, I'm from Chicago, and my team is the Northwestern Wildcats. I had a friend call me and said, "You know Ohio State's playing Northwestern, right?" I said, "You mean the sixth ranked Buckeyes?" And this is 2004. The 6th ranked Buckeyes are playing Northwestern, and he goes, "Yeah, it's at night, and it's at Ryan Field." What?
Yeah.
I said, all right, I'm not working. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to get a bunch of snacks, and I'm going to be glued to the television. And then NU gets out to a big lead, and I wasn't comfortable. My dad came upstairs, and he said, how do you explain this? I said, Dad, I'm not comfortable. He says, why? You see that number 6 in front of Ohio State? They're the 6th ranked team in the country. That means it's a 60-minute game. So it got tied. It was tied 27 apiece. It went to overtime. Ohio State missed a field goal kick, and I'm going, how did he miss that? I started getting real nervous because my Cats had the ball. Brett Bazinet was the quarterback at the time. Got down to the 5-yard line, and I froze in front of the television. My dad just peeked in and goes, "You were saying?" Like, Dad, shut up. I know you're right. I was confident, but shut up. He came in with me, and I had the WGN call as well as the feed on ESPN. And then Noah Herron broke the plane and won the game, and I lost it. I went nuts.
That was crazy. I remember that. I was like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. That was rough.
I bet.
We had it. But
I thought you guys were going to come back and steal it, being the big bad Buckeyes. And I love the Buckeyes. Don't get me wrong. I love the Buckeyes. I love my Cats, but I love the Buckeyes, and I respect the Buckeyes. But that game, I must have put on in the next month. I must have put on about 25 pounds because I bet like 4 different. I bet like 4 different dinners from people.
Oh, man.
And they called me and they said, "How did you know this was going to happen?" And I wasn't going to tell him I was standing in front of the television nervous off my rear end. Are you kidding me? I'm not giving that away.
Right,
but they knew.
Exactly.
They knew. They knew because when they bought the dinners, then they said, "How nervous were you?" I said, "Extremely," which explains why I don't have any hair on my head right now because I'm bald.
Right. Yeah, no, Northwestern played well that year. I actually visited Northwestern out of high school. I went on an official visit there.
Really?
And, yeah, man, Damian Anderson was, he had just had an amazing year. And
oh, man.
I went there and I was like, man, maybe I could be the next Damian Anderson here. But then I was like, man, Northwestern, I just don't know if they're going to be consistent.
Yeah.
From a winning standpoint. So, but that was great.
3 great coaches in line: Gary Barnett, and then Randy Walker, and now Pat Fitzgerald. Pat Fitzgerald,
serious. He's a beast, man. He's a beast.
Pat Fitzgerald was a beast on the field, and he's doggone a beast as a coach.
Absolutely.
They could not have picked They could not have picked a better candidate to run the Northwestern football team than Pat Fitzgerald.
That's for sure. That is for sure.
Man, it's so much fun talking with you. I can't wait to have you on again. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Got some more stuff for you, folks. Stick around. I'll be back in a flash.
Snowman in the morning.
Holy on snow!
Where true sports talk lives.
I like him. He's silly.
So, I have... Wait, try again. 3, 2, 1. So, I have spoken to a lot of people about the recent happenings we like to call the NFL draft. And a couple people commented it kind of feels like a game because we haven't had any live games in a while. William Morgan, who's a Saints fan and the man in charge of the Sports Report, now joins me. How are you, brother?
Hey, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming back, number one. Number two, did the draft feel like it was like sports was back in a way for you?
It did, and I also like the way they made it sort of kind of personal by going into the people's home. I like that too.
Yeah, I really like that. Let's begin with your Saints, the kings of the NFC South. What?
Man,
I don't have to complete the question to know your response to it because we talked on and off Friday night.
Mm-hmm. Man, the only thing I can think of with that first pick, the only thing I can think of they even made that pick happen. We got killed up the middle by the Vikings in that one playoff loss that we had at the end of the season. So, and Larry Wartford, it looks like his time is coming up with us. So I'm even maybe looking at a trade, and that he will be his replacement because he will be either you just signed Pete back, so you can't cut Pete. You can't cut penalties, Pete. So it looks like it's going to be Larry Warford, who's probably either traded or let go, in my opinion, because his play had declined.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously declined. So that's my opinion. Now, I do like what we did by trading up to address the need.
Yeah.
To get the linebacker that we so-called that we need, that we coveted so badly.
Yes.
But the thing that kills me, Sean Payton and this LSU hate. Patrick Queen was right there.
Yes, he was.
He was right there. And I don't know what it is.
And
rumor has it.
And y'all didn't get him. Patrick Queen was right there.
He was right there. Do you remember? You remember Katrina?
Yes.
And what I'm thinking, the reason why Peyton hates LSU so much is because LSU would not let the Saints use their practice facility during Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
So from that point forward, if you look back, they haven't. The last LSU person we drafted or player we drafted was Devery Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
From that point forward, no players from LSU.
None.
So, and I don't know what we're doing in the third round. I mean, Troutman, he didn't perform well in the combine. He didn't even look like an average athlete in the combine.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Peyton feels he can coach him up or whatever. He looks great against low-level competition, but I don't know what that turnaround means when he goes up against NFL defenses. And then round 7. Bruh, Tommy Stevens. The man has thrown 202 passes in his college career.
Yep.
If you make him the number 7, Randy Moss's kid was still on the board at that point.
Thaddeus Moss was still there.
Yeah, you could have took Thaddeus in the 3rd instead of Troutman. If you're looking for a project, I don't know. I know Bleacher Report had Troutman. I know Bleacher Report said kind of had Troutman rated kind of high because a lot of people are saying he's like a poor man's George Kittle. But
that can't be because there's only one George Kittle, and Marcus Williams got a face full of him up close and personal in the Superdome last year.
Yeah, so I don't know what the Saints are doing, man. I don't know. The only thing, maybe trading Warford, or we can get the compensatory pick for Carolina for Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe that's something that's in the works. Maybe the front office can find a gem in the rough. But outside of that, after those first 2 picks, man. Man,
I read some of your complaints on social media. Meanwhile, the team that I follow and have loved for many years, the 49ers, to say the least, were quite busy.
that team, you let go of Breida.
Mm-hmm.
But you did pick up Trent Williams.
Yep.
And then you trade Godwin.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
I'll tell you exactly. I'll tell you exactly what they're doing. I will tell you exactly what they're doing. Godwin's use ran out in San Francisco, and I hate saying that because I love seeing him play. But now you see what kind of offense the 49ers have put together, especially now with Joe Staley retiring and Trent Williams coming in. Breida played himself out. Same with Godwin. Now, I hate saying that about Godwin and Breida because I was the biggest fan of Matt Breida when he came to San Francisco. But when you can't hold on to the ball and you can't stay healthy, and you're on a team that's going to be beyond competitive for a long time, and basically Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman ran Breida out of town. They ran him out.
And also, that's true too. And also, they did pick up 2 receivers in the draft, so maybe that's why Godwin
like Juwan Jennings out of Tennessee. They snatched him. They snatched Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State, and Ayuk is a poor man's John Taylor. And anybody who remembers the 49ers from back in the day remembered the sneaky talent John Taylor had. So now you get you get Debo on one side, Ayuk on another. Remember, Jalen Hurd is still in the wings because he was injured last year with a back injury. And I just don't see the 49ers parting with a 6'6" wide receiver that can run routes and is hand strong and very strong the way Jalen Hurd is. I'm excited to see how this offense blends together. But I will say, do not be surprised if the 49ers pick up one more running back who wasn't drafted that insert him into that system, and he's going to be dangerous.
Yeah. The team that gets me that I have no idea what they're doing are the Green Bay Packers. What in the world
Jordan Love
are you doing?
Jordan Love?
What are you doing? Everybody's got to have an heir apparent, and I get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
But at the same point, they didn't draft not one single receiver.
None. I guess they're depending on Devontae Adams, and Devontae Adams got shut down in Santa Clara last January when everybody said, listen, let's go back to the NFC Championship game. The 49ers were an unproven commodity going into that championship game in terms of playoff games for a while.
Yeah.
I understand that. The Packers were a proven commodity with everyone that's come through Green Bay in the past 5 years. I understand that. But at the same time, I don't think the Packers took the 49ers seriously.
That might have been the case.
And no one's taking the 49ers seriously again with all the moves they made. They weren't dangling. If you read the reports, and I know you did, you do a great job with the sports report. It was put out there that the 49ers were willing to trade Dee Ford and Quan Alexander for picks. No, they weren't going to do that. If you believe that, a big-time smoke screen. A big-time smoke screen. They're going to sign them to long-term deals because those were 2 of the heavy hitters in that defensive lineup. And now, with the 49ers snatching DeForest Buckner's heir apparent in Javon Kinlaw, you get 4 first-rounders across the front line again. Everybody returns healthy, and that savage defense can become even more savage.
Yep. Exactly. I want to tell you another team that I was impressed with in the draft. That's the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes.
Really impressed with what they did in this draft. Oh, my goodness. Queen is right there. Dobbins. Oh, man. Duvernay from Texas. Very, very happy with what they did in the draft.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is going to be a monster. And now you give Lamar Jackson the running back that he needed. He needed it last year, and he didn't have it.
Mm-hmm. Nope. I mean, now you give him somebody that can actually go out there, catch passes, be nimble in space. Look, I miss Mark Ingram, don't get me wrong, but nimble in space is something he's just not. And, and the Ravens really needed that. And for them to get that in round 2 and be a playoff team, yeah, they did it right.
Yeah, they really did.
They really did.
Besides
really
the Packers,
what they did.
Besides the Packers, no, let's just get the big old elephant in the room. That, of course, Rob Gronkowski is now in Tampa, along with Tom Brady. And everybody who thinks they're a Buccaneer fan says that the Buccaneers will, A, win the NFC South. I say not. And B, are Super Bowl contenders. And I say not. I'm sorry, but 2 big problems I see with Tampa Bay. 1, they haven't shored up their secondary. And 2, and they still haven't addressed this, they don't have a running game. Not a consistent one.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. I am not a Ronald Jones fan at all. He'll have a big week every other week, but I'm not a big Ronald Jones fan at all. It was nice to see that they did try to shore up their offensive line somewhat. Their offensive line last year was terrible.
It was porous. It was absolutely porous.
Yep. And to see them trade up to address that somewhat was very, very good. But I'm still not a Ronald Jones fan. I think the secondary is still leaky. And Brady's not the most nimble of foot back there. He can move around a little bit, but I don't think he has it anymore. I said it when it first happened. I think they'll make the playoffs, maybe get to the second round, and that'd be about it.
If they get to the second round, I'll be surprised. Do you count them as a playoff team? Absolutely, because you got one of the greatest ever to do it. But at the same time, if they don't fix the problems that's in front of them, what good is this 2-year deal going to do?
Yeah. And plus another thing, you can't count on Rob Gronkowski to be healthy the whole year either.
Right. You
He's
can't,
got injury history.
You can't count on Rob Gronkowski to be George Kittle. I'm sorry, but Gronkowski was the best tight end in the NFL for a number of years, but now you got folks like Travis Kelce and George Kittle that have supplanted him. They've supplanted him.
Yep.
Yeah. William Morgan of the Sports Report joining me for his quick breakdown of the Saints draft. I plan to have him on later in the week, and yes, we're going to get some hoop talk in because there are a few things happening with the NBA. We're going to talk about that later in the week. Thanks a lot, my friend. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's going to just about do it for this edition of Snowman in the Morning. Want to thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to log on to Snowman Digital Media, where you can hear a replay of this show, and also snowmaninthemorning.com, where you can hear a replay of this show. Check out the podcast on both sites, as the podcast will be available immediately after I close up shop here, which I'm about to do now. Until tomorrow, have a great day. God bless. Remember to make your next move your best move, and always remember, if your dreams don't scare you, then they are not big enough. Dream big, do bigger. I am, and I hope you all are too. Until tomorrow, Snowman's out of here.